I was the kid that was always reading. It was my thing. I didn't have many friends, but I did read many books. I remember in year 7 there was this reading challenge where we had to read as much as we could in a month and write it down. And so naturally I was all in. I would spend every spare second reading. To school, from school, recess, lunch. I used my pocket money to buy like a little clip-on reading light so I could read in bed. I was hardcore. It gets to the last day of the challenge. I'm super excited. The other kids have been ripping into me because I'm the weirdo, right? But it was all going to pay off in the end. Tell me how this Kumon bitch doubled my time. Yeah, you had to have your parents sign off on your minutes, right? You had a little log, like a log diary. Double. How is that possible? Either she didn't sleep the entire month, or her and her parents are barefaced f***ing liars. I'll never get over that. That rage will fuel me for years. Somewhere along the way, I just lost that passion. The number of books I read per year dwindled until I don't think I read a single book in 2021. And that's scary. And then I came across this video, Bookstores, How to Read More in the Golden Age of Content by Max Joseph. I swear to you, this video changed the chemistry of my brain. In this video, Max talks to his friend Tim Urban, who helps him work out how many books he'll read for the rest of his life if he just continues with his current reading habit. And it ended up being just one shelf worth of books. And this concept terrified me because my shelf probably wouldn't look much different if I carried on the way I have been carrying on. So I want to thank Max for this video wholeheartedly because it really helped me to whip my ass into shape. I would really recommend watching this video if you haven't. Not only is it just great inspiration for reading, but you get to see some of the coolest bookstores in the entire world. So this summer I took inspiration from my year 7 reading challenge and really just went all in. My screen time hit an all-time low and I was just enthralled. So let's go through the books that I got through this summer. I'm going to break it down into 5 categories. We've got pop lit, mystery, non-fiction, literary fiction, and classics/modern classics. Let's begin on a very high note because what I have to say for the rest of the books in this category ain't so hot. It's Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I just adore this. It is so up my alley. Is it the most intelligent read? No, but it's just so endearing and so fun. 70s California, glamorous rock stars, their messy lives. Like, what's not to love about that? I have a real affinity for that Laurel Canyon, Californian scene, Buffalo Springfield and the Mamas and Papas and Frank Zappa. So I don't know why I didn't read this sooner. I really enjoyed how it felt like you were reading a documentary, and the bits where characters will completely contradict something a character has just said is so funny. I've quickly come to realize that I think I just really like books that explore complicated relationships because I think it's a natural human defense to try and look at things in black and white, but it's just not the case. We're confusing beings that have sometimes confusing dynamics with other confusing beings. Watching this love triangle unfold was sad and lovely at the same time, and it was really hard to demonize anyone for just having the feelings that they were having. It was obviously heavily inspired by Fleetwood Mac and the complicated relationships there, so if you're into that kind of thing, you'll love this. By the time this video goes out, I'm pretty sure the TV adaptation is going to be out, so just for any friends or family watching this, just know I will be going AWOL for a while. I already know I'm going to love it because Sam Claflin plays Billy, and that man is very high up on my list of gentlemen I would love to share a bottle of wine with. In contrast, we have A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, and let me tell you, this book was a waste of my damn time. Dumb, predictable, so poorly written. Oh my god. No likable characters except Lucian. He was cool. But oh my god, Feyre sucks. Don't even get me started on her inner monologue. I felt like Neymar the amount of times my eyes were rolling around in my skull. I knew as soon as Tamlin came to... Was it Tamlin, his name? Yeah, Tamlin came to pick up Feyre from her village that this was going to be an enemies to lovers story. It was tacky. I thought the ending was really lame, especially that riddle. Oh my god. Ugh. I know I'm probably going to get some heat for this because people love this series, but I just wanted to like scream at the author, oh my god, grow up, the entire time. Will I be finishing the series? No. Verity by Colin Hoover. The best way I can sum up this book is loved the story, hated the writing. Like, it was definitely a page turner because the concept was really cool and I really did want to know what was happening next. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the writing made me want to rip my own eyeballs out. The love story element of this is probably the most unconvincing romance I've ever come across. Like, what did they actually like about each other? Neither of them are particularly interesting, and what, he's a good enough dad and has experienced trauma? Is that what our definition of a dreamboat is now? Also, I'm going to say something spoilery in the next 30 seconds, so skip that if you want to still read this book. The twist at the end was not good. Like, I honestly think it would have been better if they just left it as she was fully functioning the whole time and they killed her. That was decent. The letter at the end, I feel kind of just ruined the story. Maybe I'm just a mystery snob because I devour like every British crime drama there is. So I have high standards, but it just didn't hit the way the BookTok girlies promised that it would. And there's no way that someone who truly loves their kids would make up something as horrific as that memoir. Like, that's just silly. I don't regret reading it, but it's safe to say this is my one and only foray into Colin Hoover books. Under the mystery category, we have books 1 and 2, of Richard Osman's Thursday Murder Club series. And I cannot begin to tell you what a place these books hold in my heart. They are funny and intelligent and heartwarming and heartbreaking all at the same time, and the mysteries are so good. These books are set in Kent, which is actually my home county, so I know a lot of the places that are mentioned, like Maidstone. So just personally, that's really nice for me. All of these characters are my comfort characters now, and I just love them so much. I've never come across a book with characters of like that elderly or retired age that are written with so much care and dignity and depth. We typically only get a view of these kinds of characters through the eyes of a younger protagonist, so their struggles aren't really represented, and they're, you know, quite unique struggles, and I think that's something that Osman does so perfectly. I mean, the scenes with Elizabeth and her husband who has dementia are just so incredibly written. There's one in particular that just made me bawl. It was so touching and so devastating. If you've read these books, let me know who your favourite character is and why is it Bogdan? And if it's not Bogdan, they're perfect for a train read. I worked out I can finish, they're quite short, engaging chapters, and I can read 1 or 2 in between stations. So if you're looking for a book for your commute, definitely recommend. 10 out of 10, absolutely love these. I will reread them until I die, probably. This is This Woman's Work, Essays on Music, and I'm kind of half and half on this one. Initially reading the blurb, I thought, oh my god, this is the perfect book for me. Music, essays, kick-ass women, like, so up my street. And some of the essays in this are absolutely incredible. In particular, there's this one called Songs of Exile, which is written by this woman, Fatima, who is from Syria and is talking about songs that take her back to her time there because she had to flee. There's another one about like mixtapes that have soundtracked someone's life. Another one from a woman who worked at Sub Pop Records, which is Nirvana's record label. They were so engaging and so good. I was just in awe of them. But in contrast of these killer essays, there were some that just weren't it. I like language. I like words. I like beautiful words that are constructed into lovely sentences with great vocab. But some of this shit was just hideously pretentious. Let me just read you an excerpt from this essay on trap music, okay? Trap and drill music. Trap music is stunning. An initiating dilemma is the blankness many listeners report when asked to account for the difference between listening pleasure and disavowal, if not condemnation, of the music's ostensible content. The music's true content is all that is a material thing, all that is an imaginary and actual space for gathering practitioners and audiences, and all of the ways it travels in the symbolic realm. Is that not the most condescending shit you've ever heard? I think music of all genres is f***ing magical, and I talk about it in depth and with so much detail, but do you think for a second I would go up to, you know, the pioneers of trap music and say something like that? No. But just to reiterate, there were some great essays in this that do make it worth it. So, yeah. The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. Oh my God. This is one of the best things I have ever read. This is a book that the lovely Miss Anna Wallace Johnson recommended on her channel. If you haven't watched this woman, she is an absolute gem. You need her in your life. I will link her below. Go check out her channel. I don't even mind if you don't finish this video. You need this woman in your life. This book took me the most amount of time to read because it's very information dense. There's a lot of names and places and dates. But did I get bored once? No, not a single time. This was riveting. This book follows two stories, one being the inception and construction and opening of the Chicago World Fair, and the other being the story of H.H. Holmes, one of America's most notorious serial killers, because it was sort of happening at the same time, sort of interlopes. I'm a bit of a crime junkie, so I knew that the serial killer part of the story would get me engaged, but I didn't realize how much I would be so invested in the fair side of things. You know, I found myself going, no, not the wall falling down. It was just all so fascinating. I love architecture and art, so reading about that kind of stuff was really, really fascinating. And I cannot wait now to one day go to Chicago and see the remnants of what's left. Only a few buildings still remain, but Jackson Park's still there. 11 out of 10. Read it. Where do I start with this one? This is The Giant Dark by Sowat Hussein. I really can't work out whether I loved this or hated this. I picked this book up first for its cover. Like, full disclosure, I just thought that looked really rad. But then I read the blurb and I was like, oh, this is coming home with me. I'll read it to you. Ada is a rock star at her peak with a devoted cultish fan base which follows her every move. When she disappears into a complicated love affair with an ex, her fans are determined to uncover the truth. After a decade of silence, Ada and Ehsan reconnect, hoping to recreate the love they shared in their youth. But when Ehsan's life unravels, he follows Ada on tour, but it becomes clear that their connection is strained by secrets and jealousies. The past blurs with their present as they follow in the footsteps of mythic lovers before them. Essentially, this is a modern-day retelling of the story of Orpheus and Eurydice, but with rock stars. So, yeah, I was into that. Being familiar with the Greek tale, I was very into the modern takes that Hussein had in this. It was done very cleverly. You'd think, knowing the story, that I wouldn't be shocked by the plot twist. Still was. You go through so many emotions with these characters. Like in the beginning, when they reconnect at a friend's house, like at a party, and then go to the pub later, I reread that bit like 3 times because it just, something about it had me feeling things. But then as it went on, I started getting really frustrated with these characters. It was a bit like Marianne and Connell, you know, in Normal People, where it's like, oh God, can you just communicate like adults, please? But I think that was done intentionally by the author. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. My only worry with it is that for people that aren't aware of the original Greek tale, I don't think it holds up as a story. Like, I think the twists and turns in it are just a bit too odd for the way that the book is originally set up, because it's going one way for like a lot of the book, and then the rest is a bit chaotic. Like, I appreciated it because I knew the tale, but I think it might just be, a little bit too weird for people just to read as it is. And I'll never be able to actually view it through that lens. So I'm really interested if anyone has read this, but not the original. So please let me know if you have and what you actually thought of the story. Let's go. We got My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Mostreg. I don't know what this says about me, but I found this hilarious and cathartic. I might need to talk to someone about that. The general premise of this book is this woman decides she wants to sleep for an entire year because she's depressed, although I don't think she ever really truly acknowledges that. And she thinks if she sleeps for an entire year, she'll wake up reborn as a completely new person. She's objectively an awful person, and she really just does not give a shit about what she says to people. And there's like a little part of me that kind of respects her for that. I'm of the opinion that good people don't exist, like truly 100% good people. I think we're all kind of shitty. I catch myself a lot of the time thinking, oh my God, if you just said what you thought out loud, people would think you're the biggest bitch in the world. So this was kind of satisfying to read. I also have sort of self-destructive tendencies, and when things aren't going right, there's a little like goblin voice in my head saying, quit your job, ruin all your friendships. So it was kind of, I loved that I could read about this bitch just fucking her whole life up. If I had to describe this book in one word, it would be romp. Again, don't know if I'm exposing myself as being a shit human, but I loved this a little too much. Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca. Wow. I adore this. Truly, this is one of the best books I've ever read, and I think it will be a lifelong favourite. If you don't know about this story, we have a protagonist who is never named, actually. She is working as a wealthy lady's companion while she is holidaying in Monte Carlo, and that's where she meets the recently widowed Mr. Maxim de Winter. She quickly falls in love and agrees to marry him and move to Cornwall to his grand house called Manderley. The crux of our story is finding out what really did happen to Maxim's dead wife, Rebecca, and if she's still looking over the house from beyond the grave. The thing that struck me the most about this book is the incredible presence that Rebecca has without actually being present. She could have not even been named the entire story, and she still would have been more memorable and more important than our protagonist. Although we're seeing it unfold through the new Mrs. de Winter's eyes, really she's just representing us as the viewer, the reader, because the real relationship and story that we're following is Maxim and Rebecca's, and it's just gripping. The imagery is just beautiful. The picture that you get of Manderley is sublime, a masterful piece of literature, and I cannot wait to explore more of Daphne's work. I've been salty for years because while my nerd class had to study the true history of the Kelly gang, every other class got to cover The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. I've always been into books that were set in that sort of post-war America, like Catcher in the Rye, so I really should have read this sooner. I really loved this. Was it life-altering? No, but I really liked the experience. I think it actually would have had a bigger impact on me as a kid, so I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't read it like a decade ago. I read the whole thing in a couple of hours. It's not big. The chapter's really engaging. The pacing's great. The characters are really well written. That's what struck me actually the most. The characters all have a lot of depth and are really well thought out, and sort of there's a representation of all the different major personality types, and their flaws and redeeming qualities are all really put on display. And then I read something that made me feel so incredibly inadequate. Hinton wrote this when she was 17. 17. Do you know what I was doing when I was 17? I was falling asleep during class because I'd spent the entire night reading Merlin fan fiction. I need to get off my ass and like write a book, because that's embarrassing. Anyway, would Really recommend this book if you've got a free afternoon, you just want to read something that you'll know is good and you will like. I also had no idea that this is where the term or the phrase "stay gold ponyboy" is from. So, mystery solved. The last book I read this summer is actually a play. I don't have a physical copy because I read it on my phone, but it is The Importance of Being Earnest by Mr. Oscar Wilde. It's so good. God. I admire playwriters so much because you really have to have an incredible writing skill to be able to construct characters with depth, because you don't get the whole preamble. You don't get to read about a character's backstory. All the information that you get from a character has to be gathered by what you see on stage or what you read as you read the play. So I'm really in awe of how Wilde built such solid and interesting characters. This play is funny as shit. It's so clever, but like, what else could you really expect from Oscar Wilde? The cultural observations are hilarious. I actually highlighted one because it made me giggle on the train, which, if you know me, that's my worst nightmare, just drawing attention to myself on public transport. The amount of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It is simply washing one's clean linen in public. How good is that analogy? Oh my God. Just read it. It will take you like an hour. You'll love it. You won't regret it. Also, I will not rest until I see this man, Jack Farthing, playing Algernon Moncrief, because that is the only person I pictured in my head when I was reading this. So that's it. That's the 12 books that I read this summer. I really hope that I inspired you to pick up one of them, maybe. I would love to make more videos about books because I like words and I like talking about them. If you're into books already, I'm sure you already have a Goodreads account, so by all means, please add me as a friend. I'll leave my account linked below. Next Friday is St. Patrick's Day, so I'm going to have a special video lined up for you. So wait for that. If you don't know me, my name is Anna. I make videos about arts and culture and music. So subscribe if you would like to see more of that. I will see you next week. Have a lovely day, lovely week, lovely life. Love you. Ciao.